I'm Amy Goodman. The United States has joined Israel's war on Iran by attacking 3 Iranian nuclear sites over the weekend. U.S. B-2 bombers dropped 14 bunker-buster bombs on Iranian nuclear facilities in Fordow and Natanz. Each bomb weighs 30,000 pounds. They're the largest non-nuclear bombs in the U.S. arsenal. The U.S. Navy also launched 30 Tomahawk cruise missiles from a submarine at the nuclear site in Isfahan. President Trump ordered the attack without seeking congressional approval. He addressed the nation Saturday night.
Tonight, I can report to the world that the strikes were a spectacular military success. Iran's key nuclear enrichment facilities have been completely and totally obliterated.
Speaking at a news conference in Istanbul following the U.S. strikes, the Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi said the United States would be, quote, solely and fully responsible, unquote, for the consequences.
Islamic Republic of Iran condemns in the strongest terms the United States' brutal military aggression against Iran's peaceful nuclear facilities. It is an outrageous, grave, an unprecedented violation of the fundamental principles of the Charter of the United Nations and international law. The warmongering and lawless administration in Washington is solely and fully responsible for the dangerous consequences and far-reaching implications of its act of aggression.
Following the U.S. bombardment, Israel's carried out new waves of strikes against dozens of targets across Iran, many considered symbols of the Iranian regime. This includes bombing the gates of the notorious Evin prison, where political prisoners, regime opponents, and foreign nationals are held. While U.S. officials in the Pentagon and Vice President J.D. Vance have said the U.S. role will not be to pursue regime change in Iran, President Trump's position is less clear. On Sunday, President Trump wrote online, "It's not politically correct to use the term regime change, but if the current Iranian regime is unable to make Iran great again, why wouldn't there be a regime change? MEGA," he said, make Iran great again. For more, we're joined by guests in Brussels, in London, in Chicago, but we begin in Tehran with Mohammad Marandi, professor of English literature and Orientalism at the University of Tehran, part of the nuclear deal negotiations in 2015. Professor, welcome back to Democracy Now! Can you explain what's happening on the ground as we speak, and specifically over the weekend, the U.S. Joining Israel in bombing Iran?
People across the country are outraged, and contrary to what the regime in Washington and the regime in Tel Aviv seem to expect, people are rallying around the flag, and they are all saying that this was an unprovoked act of war that the Israeli regime carried out with U.S. support as Iran was negotiating. And then days later, in support of the Israeli regime, the United States carried out its own act of war as the Iranians were continuing to negotiate, and right after negotiations with Britain, France, and Germany. So Iranians see the United States as the aggressor, as helping the Israeli regime slaughter Iranians. Most Iranians who've died so far are civilians. And today we've seen the regime strike targets in the Iranian capital, civilian targets, killing more people. We've had funerals across the country. 2 7-year-old children in Tabriz, a city in northwestern Iran, were they had a funeral procession today. So there's anger across the board, and this is going to have huge implications for the future. A generation of young Iranians who many thought that there could somehow be a deal and rapprochement with the United States are seeing the different face of Washington and how Democrats and Republicans demonize Iran alongside one another. People in Iran have been passing around images and footage of CNN demonizing Iran, speaking about sleeper cells in the United States, showing that CNN and Fox News are not different at all. They demonize the country. They use the term regime to delegitimize and justify aggression against the country, and they try to create a false image of the country in order to prepare the grounds for further aggression. These are things that people are seeing, especially the young and educated Iranians who have greater access to international media.
Professor Marandi, there are many Iranian dissidents, but thousands of people have taken to the streets to protest the U.S. bombing and the Israeli bombing of Iran. Now, Israel's bombed the gates of the notorious Evin prison, where political prisoners are held. Can you talk about the significance of this, and if this has shifted Iranians' views at all at this point? And also, President Trump doing a 180-degree turn, J.D. Vance saying this is not about regime change, we're not against Iran, we're against their nuclear program, and then President Trump saying, no, it's about regime change, MIGA. Make Iran great again. Talk about the significance of the prison and what this means. Could it divide Iranians?
No, because Iranians don't see the government and the state in a way in which American media and American establishment, the American establishment sees it. Iranians overwhelmingly see the Islamic Republic of Iran as a legitimate state. And now, after the aggression, that has increased. Evin prison, the majority of the people there are there because of drug trade. They're linked to the drug trade, and usually they are major figures in the drug trade. You know that in Afghanistan, thanks to the U.S. occupation and the destruction of that country, thanks to the United States for over 4 decades, we have a huge drug problem in Afghanistan, and therefore a lot of the major figures are in that particular prison. Also, we have ISIS members and Al-Qaeda members in that prison, and ISIS and Al-Qaeda have been helping the Israeli regime carry out drone strikes inside Iran. So I think that is a misreading of the situation in Iran. Ordinary Iranians are looking at the United States as the aggressor, and overwhelmingly Iranians demand that the government, the armed forces, protect the country and punish the aggressor.
I want to bring into this conversation with you, Mohammad Marandi, Seyed Hossein Mousavian. He is a visiting research collaborator with Princeton University's program on science and global security. From 2003 to 2005, he served as spokesperson for Iran in its nuclear negotiations with the European Union, author of The Iranian Nuclear Crisis, a memoir, and most recently, Iran and the United States, an insider's view on the failed past and the road to peace. His new op-ed for Middle East Eye headlined, "After U.S. Attack, Iran could reconsider its nuclear strategy." Thanks so much for joining us from Brussels, Ambassador Hossein Mousavian. If you can respond to what the U.S. has done, it's interesting to have both of you on because Mohammad Marandi was involved with the Iran deal negotiations in 2015, and you back a decade before.
It is obvious, Amy, that the U.S. and Israeli strikes on Iran is in a clear violation of international law and regulations. It is a clear violation of United Nations Security, United Nations Charter. It is in a clear violation of the International Atomic Energy Agency rules and regulations. And many experts now are talking that the current attacks are not only attacks on Iran, they are attacks on non-proliferation treaty. It is it would have definitely a counterproductive result. I mean, the fact is, Amy, that Israel is the only country in the region with 100 to 400 nuclear bombs, and Iran is member of NPT. Israel is not. Iran does not have nuclear bomb. Israel does have nuclear bomb. And Iran has given the highest, the most inspections to the IAEA during the history of IAEA, and Israel has never given such access to IAEA. And now Iran is the most sanctioned country, and the U.S. is supporting Israel with nuclear bombs, and they both are claiming that they are fighting proliferation in the Middle East. I mean, practically the U.S. is supporting a country with nuclear bomb, attacking a country with no nuclear bomb, claiming that the U.S. is fighting for proliferation in the Middle East. Therefore, Iranians are now looking for tears being member of the non-proliferation treaty, giving every access to the IAEA. And now they have been attacked. Before they have been sanctioned. And countries like North Korea, Israel, India, Pakistan, which they have never accepted non-proliferation treaty, they have never been attacked. That's why they are now thinking perhaps having nuclear bomb is much better deterrence compared to being member of NPT.